Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Happy official off season.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Happy off season. The Super Bowl is over.
Wherever you are in the world, doesn't matter. Football is over. Well, the games being played are officially over. Wrapped up with a pretty good Super Bowl.
This is where the fun begins, man. I'm all about that
is it?
dynasty. Yes.
I mean, this is where the.
If your team isn't in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl, in the big game, you weren't very you live in LA and you weren't very invested in the Super Bowl.
Well, I care about the game each year.
You were watching the game, but you weren't like locked in.
I mean, I watch it from a perspective of I'll do little contests around the Super Bowl, like fantasy related. And so, you get a little skin in the game, make it a lot more interesting. Yeah, that way you have something to root for if you're not a Rams fan or a Bengals fan. So that makes it a little extra fun. And, I was at a watch party with plenty of people, plenty of food. So that was a good time. So yeah, and you can still make an event out of it. Doesn't matter if it's your team or not.
Yeah, but the point being, like,
your investment in the actual
the
game
itself
is not
the same. This is dynasty season. I'm
right.
all about that dynasty season.
No, this is where the work comes in. If you want to equate fun to putting in that work, then that's what that's all about.
Yes.
That's what that's all about,
Yes.
and that's what we do. That's what we do here at Face Mask Fantasy. So first
What's
of all,
going on,
welcome
Logan?
in.
How you doing, man?
Yeah, welcome in everybody. Logan, what's going on? This is the time to put that work in.
What'd you think of the game?
I thought it was a good game. I feel like it was getting poo-pooed a little bit on social media for not being that exciting, and I wasn't quite understanding that mindset.
I mean, it came down to the last play.
It was literally down to a 4th and 1 with 30 seconds left,
and
or
we
so.
had
like
some fireworks in there. I mean, yes, at some points there were a few lulls. I feel like the third quarter was a little bit of a lull in the third quarter.
A little bit.
None of the commercials slapped.
I liked the crypto one where the thing was bouncing around like the old school computers.
Yes. Yo, I wanted it to hit in the corner like in that episode of The Office.
At the very the whole party I was at got invested into that. Yeah. We were all like watching the TV like, come on, hit it, and it did. Everybody cheered. That's the only memorable one, honestly. Well, to be completely honest, it was a little too loud for me to pay attention to each commercial, and so I can't like accurately critique any of the other ones, but that one sticks out to me. That one was pretty fun. The only other one I can remember is the one that's been played on repeat ever since, which is the one with Zendaya in it, and I'm not even really sure to this point what that commercial was.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
I was on YouTube a lot today. I heard the commercial with those two scrub dudes, the dudes from the Scrubs, who were singing at each other about Verizon or something.
I don't even know if
I saw that one about 20 times today. So
I'm not even sure if I know which one that is.
Yeah, I'm getting real sick of that one. But
yeah,
the game was better than people are letting on.
The game was fine.
We had some intrigue. Odell Beckham leaving and going out. That intrigue. Oh no, the Rams are in trouble now. What are they gonna do? There was some weird coaching decisions for the Rams. I mean, they won. They got the outcome they wanted, but
they won the game.
Using Bryson Hopkins and Ben Skronek as much as they did was just kind of like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think when Odell went down, obviously they had to kind of pivot because, as you know, as predictable as it was, the Bengals to no avail, were double covering Cooper Kupp. So somebody else in the passing game, and they couldn't run it at all.
No,
they couldn't run it at all. Cam Akers has, I mean, we've heaped praise on Cam Akers
for just
returning, but he hasn't had like a super strong playoff run. So they weren't running the ball well. Darrell Henderson came in and was ahead of Sony Michel. He was more of a pass catcher. Sony got like 2-3 carries, not even that. So it was Cooper Kupp and nothing else after Odell went down. And it took them a long time to actually put the ball in Matthew Stafford's hands. It took until probably the fourth quarter for them to actually commit to throwing the ball despite their lack of weapons after Odell went down. So it took them a really long time to adjust, but I guess they figured it out with just enough time to get it done. The biggest coaching gaffe for me is why is Samaje Perine in on that play? When you have Joe freaking
That
Mixon.
was crazy. I know
Mixon didn't have like the best game ever, but it's like it's the Super Bowl in a consolidated, like in one little
passes,
game.
He's versatile.
Yeah, he caught 4 passes in that game. I think they
outsmart him.
Like
they just tried to outsmart him.
Yeah, that's the bread and butter of NFL coaches. They're the smartest people in the room. So coaching mistakes. For the most part, it was a penalty-free game. That was really nice. The T. Higgins touchdown.
Up until the last drive.
The last drive, there were some flags. The T. Higgins touchdown should have obviously been was it a face mask or a PI? One of those two. I think it was a face mask. Should have been called #face mask. But it wasn't called. Didn't hurt the Rams ultimately. It was fine. I enjoyed the game. I had no problem with it. The halftime show was phenomenal. A lot of fun. It was a good experience overall.
Yeah, man. You had 50 Cent upside down, and I don't know if a lot of people caught it, but it was, if you go and watch the In the Club video for 50 Cent, he's upside down in the video. So it was a callback to that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine how many times I've seen the video,
man.
but
just
like maybe not recently. So
you'll see it. It's immediate.
Okay.
Yeah. And I
That's
mean, Dr. Dre playing "I Ain't Mad at Ya," a Tupac song, right after Eminem knelt down after doing "Lose Yourself." So it was, I think they were playing chess, like 3D chess, 4D chess a little bit there, kneeling and then going right into a piano version of "I Ain't Mad at Ya." I feel like they were trying to send a little bit of a message there, but basically, come together, everybody. It's football. But yeah, man, the halftime show was great. Mary J killed it. Snoop, his outfit was dope.
Somebody on Twitter, somebody on social media said he looked like the magic carpet from Aladdin.
Kinda, I know a lot of people out there were also talking about, they were lip syncing. Well,
it's a performance. They got other things to do.
No, like if you were paying attention, it was only the choruses. Any of the verses weren't lip syncing.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And it's rap. You gotta understand that. But no, it was entertaining. The game was more entertaining than the internet is letting on.
Yeah, I
only
agree.
Just to laugh at Eli Apple all day. Like it was entertaining. It was entertaining. And it kept you involved in the game and invested in the game all the way till the end. Mm-hmm. It was fun. It was a fun game. It's fun.
Yeah, can't complain. Congrats to
Odell
the Rams.
Beckham getting injured was a bummer.
That was the downside to it. He's now got a second ACL rehab that he has to undergo.
I think it increases his when we're gonna get into this soon. I think a lot of people are thinking, now's the time to sell OBJ. He's never coming back and all that. But I think this increases the chances that he stays with the Rams because he'll probably come cheap coming off a second injury. And he's already involved in the Rams, said he loved the Rams, won a Super Bowl with the Rams. So he's going to stay with the Rams.
Caught a touchdown in the game, had 50 yards like very early before he was forced to exit. I wouldn't be surprised about that. No, I would not be selling Odell if I had him in Dynasty. One, because what in the world you're not going to get yes, if he's coming off 100-yard, 2-touchdown performance and somebody's giving you 2 first-round picks, then that's one thing. But that's not the case, and that's not the package or offer that you're going to get for Odell. I would just hold him. He's not a part of this conversation today, as far as I'm concerned. He's not a sell.
Well, no, we had Van Jefferson as a buy last week, and now this, I think, pushes Van Jefferson down the depth chart for one more season.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely possible.
That's a little bit disappointing, and then we have to see what happens with Robert Woods, and it throws another wrinkle in there that you got to think about. A little bit less certainty with this team from a wide receiver perspective moving forward. But let's get right into some of these 2022 way too early Dynasty Sells. And we
can do that.
Real quick, let's get to Logan's question here about Tyson Williams first.
Yeah, we can knock that out.
I play in a 12-team Dynasty League. 38-man rosters is Tyson Williams worth holding on to? Probably not.
Yeah, unfortunately, probably not. If there's not somebody available right now who you're dying to add, like, maybe I would just hang on to him, like, just for the sake of, I don't need to make a move right now because I'm not playing a game this weekend. But long term, the Ravens are going to get J.K. Dobbins back. They're going to get Gus Edwards back. For all we know, Devontae Freeman may have earned himself a role next year. Obviously not as the starter.
Justice Hill was injured and had a torn Achilles or ACL as well.
I think that was Achilles for Justice Hill, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah, they need a third back, but it's more likely to be Devonta Freeman, who should be able to get signed by something near the veteran minimum.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The only thing is Tyson Williams is an ERFA, exclusive rights. He's not an ERFA. It's some kind of weird,
like a restricted free agent where it's like you could put a tender on him, or but then you would have to pay the pick compensation.
Something like that. Yeah, I'd have to go back and check SpotTrack, but I remember that when we were
acquire him. So he's gonna be a Raven. He's gonna be a Raven, or
right,
he'll be.
But is he gonna see the field? I don't know.
No, hard to say.
You're counting on
not hard to say.
Unless you're counting on injuries again, and I wouldn't.
Yeah, which you can't. Hard to see him getting playing time moving forward, at least on the Ravens. If they cut him outright after during the preseason in 2022, and he latches on in a more favorable opportunity, then sure, maybe he's worth a look.
I think he's old for a running back now too. At this point, I think he's 25 or will be 25 by the time he starts next season. So yeah, not holding on to 25-year-old running backs who shouldn't see the field, even with 38-man rosters.
He will be 26 before the season starts.
There you go. So he's even older than that. So yeah.
Just before.
You can cut him.
Yeah. I don't think he's a hold. Nice story. Had a big run opening week, and then I almost like that. That was like all we had heard of him. It is what it is.
All right. So who is your first 2022 way too early Dynasty sell?
Sell in Dynasty. This one might be a little bit obvious. John was referring to before the show how we were trying to avoid quote unquote low hanging fruit.
We said that off stream. Yeah.
Yeah. So we said we're going to try to avoid the obvious ones. Like, of course, older players are more like newsflash. Older players in Dynasty start to lose value.
Like, I'm not going to say now's the time to sell Julio Jones. Like, no.
Right. Yeah. Now's not the time to sell Devontae Freeman. But there is a prominent running back name who is officially getting older, and I think he needs to be on this list because this time next year, I think it'll be too late. And that's Ezekiel Elliott, or as I'm not so glowingly referring to him today as Ezekiel Selliott.
Boom. Coined it.
This is a prime example of trading a guy 1 year too early instead of 1 year too late. There is a number that we can collectively point to and kind of fall back on when it comes to running backs and their career workload, when you can start to see a real trend as far as a decline. Zeke is very close to that benchmark, and it's the benchmark of 1,800 career carries. When a running back, generally speaking, pretty much the only exception to this rule is Emmitt Smith. When a running back hits 1,800 career carries, the wear and tear really starts to set in. You start to see multiple steps
before that, and we've already seen through the second half of the season with Ezekiel Elliott that injuries, he picked up an injury and just was not the same from a fantasy perspective.
He looked slow. Tony Pollard consistently looked like the more explosive back in 2021.
With the plantar fascia issue.
Yeah. Zeke had his fewest carries in a season this year, even fewer than his second year when he was suspended for 6 games. So he had more carries in 10 games in 2017 than he did in 18 games because he played all 18 games this year. He had fewer carries in 8 more games this year than his second season. So it's a tough pill to swallow, most likely if you have Zeke in Dynasty, but the time is now. He's at, I mentioned 1,800 career carries is the benchmark to start to really be worried about running backs. Zeke is currently at 1,650. He's exactly at 1,650. So with 150 carries to go until he hits 1,800, he's going to hit that in 2022, assuming good health. It's a mortal lock. He's going to get 150 touches because that would be his career low by about 100. So he's going to get it. That's when the wheels are we're really going to start to see them fall off. You are not going to get a better return for Zeke than in this offseason. If you want to roll the dice, maybe you're a contender and you want to take a shot on him for the beginning of the season and try to sell even higher during the season, that's your roll of the dice. That's your call that you can take. I would say do it now because you have a chance of acquiring maybe a valuable pick in 2022, in addition to maybe a little something extra. I know he was still an RB1 this year, still had a 1,000-yard season. The numbers were there for Zeke at the end of the day in 2021, but the number that historically signifies decline is upon us when it comes to Zeke. And when you pull back the curtain, again, the writing's kind of on the wall. Looked less slow, wasn't the explosive player he used to be.
Looked more slow.
The time is now. You're not going to be able to. This is the last opportunity you're going to have of getting anything of value for Zeke, because I think this time next year, the return in a trade is likely to be significantly less.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Then he was in the low hanging fruit category to me, so he wasn't in my list. But he's a sell. If you don't know by now, you'll never know. But he's a sell. To piggyback off of that, because I believe he's 26 right now, is he not?
Zeke is that's a great question. Let me look up his
27?
exact age. Because I'm not. It's like in this situation, I'm not so much worried about the age as I am with the career
but no,
workload. Zeke is not old. He's 26.
I'm moving that into my player.
He'll be 27 in July.
I'm bridging the gap here.
Okay, he'll be 27 in July.
If you wanted to get peak value in Dynasty for Zeke, you should have sold him last year.
I mean, sure.
You're not going to get... You can sell him now, and I think you should sell him now. He belongs in the sell category. But you're not getting peak value for Zeke now. You were getting peak value for Zeke last year because he came with name recognition. He was still relatively young for a running back. And by all, like, Dak was coming back. I think Zeke last year is where Saquon Barkley is now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And if I had Saquon Barkley...
He's a polarizing player for Dynasty right now.
I'd probably be at least fielding offers. Because this is probably the last year. Unless all goes well and he turns back the clock and he turns in his rookie season second year.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the last year where you get peak value for Saquon Barkley. He has a new head coach who isn't known for running the ball. Now I know he never had the talent like Saquon Barkley in Buffalo, and he had such a specimen at quarterback that he was just like, pass all day, doesn't matter. We don't really.
The Giants are the opposite of the Bills in that regard.
But outside of like a 3 to 4 game stretch at the end of last year, we really haven't seen a run-heavy Brian Dable. Saquon hasn't been healthy and effective in a couple of years, but he still carries the name value and he's still only 25 right now. So, if you want to get rid of a player at peak value and try to recoup as much as possible, regardless of whether you're a rebuild or a contender, I would at least be fielding offers for Zeke to see what you can get.
Or
because I bet you.
For Saquon.
Yes, Saquon. Sorry about that. I bet you this is the season. This off season is peak sell off season for Saquon Barkley.
Do you think Saquon is like, and you know, we can, this is kind of a blanket statement. You could take this a variety of ways, but do you think Saquon's going to have, like, by any account, a good year in 2022?
Only if the team drafts like two O-linemen with 5 and 7, the 5th and 7th pick in this NFL draft.
Which they could. Probably not super likely, but they could.
Which they could.
They'll get it. They could get at least one.
Right. There is a possibility where he performs at least up to expectation. But I would still, considering it's dynasty, and if you have Saquon Barkley and you've had him for a while, you've been burned by him. If you've made it to the championships or if you made it to the end of the playoffs, you made it in spite of having Saquon Barkley, not because of having Saquon Barkley. And you can probably sell Saquon Barkley because he's still one of the biggest names in football for a relative haul.
Yeah, I mean, still only 25.
I have Saquon Barkley on my list as a sell at 25 years old. Does it feel good? No, it never feels good to trade away a star player in a year where you think things might be looking up for him. But you got to look at the reality of things. A running back who's been injured a lot, who's not getting any younger, hasn't produced for you really in like 2 years, at least to expectation. Get out from under him. Let him be somebody else's problem. And get peak value while you still can. If he pops off, great. It'll probably be for one more season, and then he's going to probably hit the decline. A la Zeke. But I think right now, Saquon Barkley is at least somebody that you should be fielding offers for again.
I don't disagree. The difference, I guess, is between Saquon and Zeke right now is not age, it's workload. Zeke has stayed healthy for his career. Saquon has not, which has allowed Zeke to stay on the field and accumulate a significant significant workload that Saquon just hasn't had even the opportunity to get because he hasn't been on the field. So Saquon's got about 650 career touches. So he's he's about a third of the way to that 1,800 benchmark.
By that metric, he should have a lot more tread on his tires, but you're not accounting for the fact that he wasn't on the field picking up touches because he was injured.
Yeah, no, I am accounting for that. That's that's kind of what I was trying to get to. Like, it's hard to compare him to Zeke because at least Zeke has stayed healthy, but workload is an issue, which is why we want to sell Zeke. Saquon we're selling because it's been a combination of injury and disappointment. Now he's on his third head coach on an offense that is still one of the most uninspiring in the NFL. Even if they do find a way to improve it in multiple areas, there's still a ton of question marks surrounding the Giants. And Saquon has suffered from that for 2 years running. Well, this past year and last year was a very small sample size, but he didn't do anything in the 1.5 games that he played. This has been Saquon's NFL career has absolutely not gone as planned, and it's a shame because his rookie year was absolutely phenomenal. But I think we are past the point of ever being able to get anywhere close to those types of numbers for him in a single season ever again, even with the extra game. I'm not opposed to it. I honestly don't know what you're going to get for Saquon because on top of because with the yes, there's name recognition, but there's also been just a lack of production. I'm on board, unloading he's a headache at this point. I mean, he would be for me. It's like, I have to play him. I have no choice but to play him, but he might only get me 5 or 6 points. But I have no choice other than to play him. That is a colossal headache. So just from the sake of not having to deal with that anymore, I understand the sentiment here. I have no major issues with trying to unload Saquon because it outside of his rookie year and for flashes here and there in his sophomore season, it hasn't happened.
And I'm not saying this out of spite. I came into this saying again.
I don't think.
Well, I don't think I even said that. I came into this Dynasty Sells segment. The thought process on this was to compile a list of players that are probably going to piss some people off, probably going to be a little bit controversial. Like, you really want to sell Saquon? A couple of these other guys on my list are really going to be like head scratches for a lot of people. But I have my reasons, and I will illustrate them. But Saquon's first up.
There you go. It's not a bad call. It's not a bad idea. Even if you are thin at running back, it's like,
because you can probably pick up another running back and some draft capital.
Yeah. Just cut losses and move on. I'm okay with that. I don't have any other running backs off the top of my head. If you do, if you want to sneak 1 or 2 more in here, we can. Or otherwise, I got
a few. But I'm gonna give you the floor, and we'll swap back and forth. We don't have to go by position group. Yeah, hit me with your next one.
All right, I got a quarterback here that was the ultimate buy for me last year, and I think this year is the ultimate sell for me. And it's Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
This is relatively simple. Last year, I was bullish on Hurts from a fantasy perspective relative to his ADP and my expectations of him with his rushing upside. All of that came true. All of that came together. The outstanding question that I presented in the offseason was, is Jalen Hurts good enough to be an NFL quarterback? And it was it's a rhetorical question at the time. It was like, let's find out. We don't know. Let's wait and see. It took the Eagles going completely away from the pass in the second half of the season to having any type of success whatsoever on offense. Can some of that be attributed to the Eagles didn't have a ton of weapons in the passing game? Hurts is still very raw. He's still pretty young. He's still learning. He's still growing. Yeah, sure. That's all well and good. But his arm's not the strongest. Accuracy was an issue last year. And I mean, you have to imagine that teams are going to look at what Tampa Bay did in the playoffs and just copy that. They're just going to stack the box with 8 defenders, 9 defenders, dare the Eagles to throw with Jalen Hurts, and they'll live and die by that. And there's a good chance that unless Hurts takes a colossal step forward, which he could, but it's not. It's the odds are against him. The numbers are against that happening. I'm not rooting against him. I can only look at recent history. He's not the passer that he needs to be at this level to be a starting quarterback. Therefore, I don't think his job as the starter for the Eagles is as secure as maybe the general consensus is feeling or believing right now today in February. I think especially so in Superflex leagues, you could probably get a solid return for a young quarterback with promise and rushing upside. I'm just not sure about his long-term future as a starter in the league. Therefore, if you have a need somewhere, you can acquire that, a piece that fills that need, maybe a lesser quarterback as a filler in a trade and a draft pick, something like that for a Jalen Hurts. I think you got to do it. The Eagles are also in the they're leading the rumor mill as to being involved with the rotation of quarterbacks this offseason. So and don't forget, Eagles have 3 first-round picks. If they really want to go get a veteran quarterback, they have the means to do it. Whether that's smart or not is another question, but they have the resources to make it happen. I am worried. Not worried's not the right word. I am skeptical that Jalen Hurts is the week 1 starter for the Eagles in 2022.
And he was a guy that you were abnormally high on coming into the year last year, and you were right. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe specifically
right.
for redraft.
You said
more
he was
so
going to
for
be
redraft.
QB6, and he was QB6. So I give you all the respect in the world for that, but you're being all the way off him to the point where you would sell him for a lesser quarterback and maybe a draft pick in Dynasty.
And a need, if I have a need, if I have a specific, like,
right.
if I need a receiver, give me a receiver, give me a lesser quarterback, give me a pick. I'll throw you a pick in return with Hurts, like a lesser pick, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, if I could get out from under Hurts and get a Derek Carr and a pick,
sure,
I think I would do that because I think Derek Carr is underrated.
Because that's not a sell, because you don't need to sell low on Hurts. Because I know the last time we saw him was in the playoffs against Tampa, and it was ugly. But on the whole, he had a good season from a fantasy perspective.
Wasn't it second most QB1 weeks in all of
he was second of all quarterbacks as far as delivering a QB1 performance. So he was not only a QB6 finish, but he was rock solid and consistent throughout the year, making that happen. So the vibes are fine. This is not like a Saquon situation where I'm trying to like cut my losses because he can't stay healthy. Hurts had a good year. I think you can get a decent little package for him, and I think the time is now to look into that. If nobody bites, then so be it. Go into the season with Hurts as your quarterback, because I think he will start somewhere. If not the Eagles, I think he will start somewhere, at least week 1. So he's, it's not like a dire straits situation, but these are waters that I'd absolutely be testing.
Okay. I can't hate on that. I can't. I understand the reasoning.
You'll have a couple that you will, or I'll have a couple that you will hate on.
And I will absolutely have a couple that you will hate on too.
All right. Well, let's do it. Or, well, maybe not necessarily right here, but I've talked Hurts. Who else you got?
Well, before we get into that, Troy, welcome. What's going on? Iron, what's popping, yo?
Oh, hey, what's going on, guys?
Yo, Troy, your keeper next year is Michael Thomas. Okay. I know we got some relatively good news about Michael Thomas a few days ago. He said he was going to return to the Saints. I guess that's relatively good news on him. And at least he will be coming into the fantasy season in 2022 healthy. And hopefully it'll be with Jameis Winston, and we'll finally get to see that connection, because we were speculating on that connection all of 2021's offseason. We were hopeful that we were going to see YOLO Jameis throwing it to Michael Thomas, and Michael Thomas leading the league in receptions and yards again like he did. Wasn't it in 2019?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a solid keeper.
What's the price, Troy? Like,
yeah, what are you keeping him for?
Just out of curiosity, like, did you pick him up off the scrap heap last year because he was, dropped or whatever, or is this dynasty? Or it's not dynasty. You're talking just one.
Yeah,
keeper.
But what's the keeper pick? What's the price?
The price? Just out of curiosity. I mean, he's definitely a high upside keeper option. Just out of curiosity.
And Iron, I would not try to trade Ridley. I've done a full kind of a full circle on Ridley. I traded Nick and I we co-own a dynasty team, and we traded for Ridley. And that was kind of this is an offer you can't refuse.
Right? We sold
Zeke. We sold Zeke.
So we're putting our money where our mouth is.
This is an offer we couldn't refuse situation, because it was Zeke and Waller for Ridley and Akers.
And a couple of picks.
Right. So it was kind of a situation where it was like, can't refuse that. But I wouldn't sell Ridley. I think it's pretty certain he's going to be going elsewhere. He's going to get traded.
I think. I mean, I.
And if you want to sell Ridley, I think then's the time to sell Ridley. If your depth is incredible and you you think that you can get by, maybe pick up some draft capital if you want to stockpile a little bit for next season, which looks to be a good draft or something like that, something to that effect, maybe. because Ridley is 27 years old, getting older, he's a question mark considering when is he going to return.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, again, you're looking for peak value for trades. The peak value for a trade is when you know that Calvin Ridley is going to be playing and what team he's going to be playing on. I wouldn't be trading him right now. And honestly, outside of the situation I just illustrated where you want to stockpile picks for next year and you're really set at wide receiver, like you run 6 deep at wide receiver 1 and 2, out without Ridley, I don't know if I'm selling Ridley right now.
If you've held him this long, you might as well just keep holding, because John already kind of alluded to this. If we are of the expectation that he's going to return, his value is only going to go up. Just hang on to him. Let's just hang on to him and see what happens. If you've stuck with him this long, keep sticking with him. If you've held on this long, continue to hold. If somebody gives you 2 first-round picks for him today, then okay, sure, pull the trigger. But if you're still getting low ball offers for him, just hold. Just hold.
All right, I'm going to move into my next one.
Do it.
Should I go for one that's going to piss people off?
Yes.
All right.
This is the whole idea. We need to ruffle some feathers today.
Okay. Then my 2022 Dynasty sell at wide receiver that is going to piss people off.
Uh-oh.
49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel. You should sell him this year. You should sell him this year.
All right. Sell him this year. All right. You go.
He's 26 years old, right in the middle of his prime. So you can get top dollar for him right now, because if he's not top 5 wide receiver right now, you're talking to somebody who doesn't have decent rankings. He's a top 5 consensus dynasty wide receiver right now.
Yeah.
Because he finished wide receiver 2 overall, second to only Cooper Kupp, who was astronomical this year. But you look at the combination of Deebo Samuel's extreme efficiency this year, unreal efficiency, and his injury history. You come to the point where, yes, he's going to have good fantasy seasons ahead of him, even great fantasy seasons ahead of him. But will he ever be ranked this high again? I don't know. I kind of feel like this might be
peak Deebo,
a DK Metcalf situation from 2021, where DK Metcalf was, the question was, is DK Metcalf or Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty? We were debating that. Now it's consensus. DK Metcalf ain't in there, ain't in that discussion. Deebo Samuel, I feel like that's, and you could have sold DK Metcalf last year for
a
pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything.
Yep.
And I think we're at that point right now with Deebo. In 2017, he had a broken fibula, broken leg, out for the season. 2020, Jones fracture, out for the season. 2021, he led the league in yards per catch with 18.2. Now, he is extremely talented.
Yak monster.
But I think that might be unrepeatable. He also had 8 rushing touchdowns, the most ever by a wide receiver in a season. He broke records last year for rushing touchdowns for wide receivers. That role for him is probably not going to change too much. Do we expect him to break a record again? I don't know.
That's hard to put that on him.
Especially with a second-year quarterback who hasn't seen a lot of NFL work. He's a relative question mark. Trey Lance starting. I am very excited about Trey Lance. I have him in my top 12 at quarterbacks if you were checking out that quarterback stream. But it should lead to more rushing attempts than passing attempts like it was under Jimmy G, which muddies the waters a little bit for Deebo Samuel's receiving prospects. Now, if we don't expect him to reach 8 touchdowns again and to tie his record-breaking from as a wide receiver touchdown season last year. And he only got 77 receptions last year, which isn't a number you should be sneezing at. But insane efficiency, because 18.2 yards per catch is probably going to go down. The amount of targets he got, 121, probably going to go down. There's a lot of mouths to feed from a receiving perspective in that offense. There's 3 other bona fide guys. I mean, Ayuk isn't Debo level, but he's a bona fide guy, and Kittle is there and also in his prime at the tight end position. I just don't know if he's going to ever be this highly ranked again, because, again, he stayed healthy all season. And in the beginning of the year, Ayuk was in a doghouse. Ayuk ain't in the doghouse anymore. And he played with a passing, not a great passing quarterback, but a passing quarterback. And he's not going to be playing with, by all accounts, a passing quarterback in the future. So I know I'm going to piss people off. But I think and this is going to be a motif for a lot of the guys that I bring up. Peak value. You can get peak value for Debo right now. And you can probably sell him for DK Metcalf plus, who's younger, a physical specimen, doesn't have the injury risk, might have a little, honestly, a little bit, I mean, it's at least comparable to quarterback question mark. We don't know who's going to be playing for the Seahawks. We don't know how Lance is going to mesh with some of his weapons. And that was just purely picking Debo out of the hat. I could mention a lot of other names here. I just think if you're trying to look for peak value for players, you can get a player of equitable value to what you should be getting out of Debo moving forward, and probably a pick.
Definitely a pick.
So that's why Debo Samuel's on my list, because you're trading a wide receiver 1. You can probably get a wide receiver 1 and a pick back, if not 2. Pretty high pick, maybe a first and a second, something like that. And at that price tag, I'm selling all day. So it's not that I don't think Debo is great and deserving of his current ranking in Dynasty. But sometimes you just got to sell high, because that's how you keep the train rolling.
Sure. I think the 120 targets is sustainable. I would say if you're worried about, a dip in production, and maybe this is almost like a plus in Debo's in an argument in favor of Debo, is you have to imagine the rushing attempts come down. They did that. I think, well, one, you do it because you have a dynamic player in Debo, but also Trey Sermon busted in his rookie season. Like they were not able to rely on him as even a change of pace option. Combine that with Raheem Mostert. I don't want to sound like a jerk or by saying like predictably or whatever, but Raheem Mostert got hurt yet again. Week 1, went down, missed the entire season. Jeff Wilson wasn't ready to play until November. So they had 6th round Elijah Mitchell who exceeded all expectations, but they didn't have anybody else. They had to get kind of creative.
Right, but they weren't really rushing with Debo until the end of the season, when a couple of those guys, when the Jeff Wilson and stuff were back.
Well, they were still trying to work Trey Sermon in the early parts of the year, and then they had Trey Lance spot start here and there.
Shanahan has come out and said that they're going to continue to use Debo the way that they used him at the end of the season.
Yeah,
and I think that bodes.
I'll believe that when I see it.
That's a little scary to me when I'm thinking about his longevity from a health perspective. And
sure, well, because
guess
what?
Not only did he have two season-ending injuries in his short career in the NFL, he also has had 10. I counted them, 10 soft tissue injuries from college through till now, from 2015 through the 2021 season, that kept him out for at least a game, if not 2, if not 3. So not only do you have broken leg, broken foot, maybe he's fully recovered from that.
Mm-hmm.
But he's picked up soft tissue injuries all over the place, which makes him a little bit harder to trust in terms of, can I just leave this guy in here for every week except the bye week and keep it moving? Again, peak value, you could probably turn Deebo Samuel into Cooper Kupp because of the age difference. There's 3 years.
Right.
3 years age
Kupp
difference.
A little older, yeah.
If you're talking to owners, I mean, these are the types of things you got to be doing. How can I
squeeze that little extra bit of value out and turn it into something favorable for me?
Right, because
it's just a tough pill to swallow is all. I mean,
it's a tough pill to swallow. A lot of the guys that I'm going to be mentioning are going to be tough pills to swallow because I didn't want to go for the low-hanging fruit because you can go to any fantasy channel for that.
Any idiot can tell you, oh, Derrick Henry's getting old.
Now,
you can trade him in Dynasty.
Can tell you should have been off of Julio Jones. Now's the time to trade Julio Jones, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Deebo isn't going to be productive in the future. I'm just saying you
expect him to
crazy
be
value for him right now.
Maybe not this
I don't
this high
think
again.
This season was repeatable.
It's going to be tough, especially with those 8 rushing touchdowns.
Yes.
And a clean bill of health.
And again, you got to look at your own team makeup.
Sure.
There are
if you're thin at wide receiver, maybe don't
where
trade
selling
Deebo.
just don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think
if you're strong,
it's at least something you gotta think about.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's all about peak value. It's all about capitalizing at opportunities when you would least expect somebody to make a move on somebody based on what recent production tells you.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, the chances are Deebo does not. Could Deebo be a top 10 receiver next year? Sure. Is he going to be top 2? That's hard to replicate.
Right.
That's hard to replicate. So,
I mean, just look at Cordarrelle Patterson, who was used in a much similar role to the way that Deebo Samuel was used.
You want to talk about low-hanging fruit?
He was a wide receiver 1 throughout, I would say 3/4 of the season, and then he dropped off.
He died at the end of the season.
And he still finished in the top 10, but he wasn't the number 2 receiver in fantasy by year's end.
No, he fell off.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Hmm. Yeah, he did not help you in the fantasy.
So maximize your value.
Sure. Maximize value.
So that was number 1 on my, I'm probably going to piss people off. Part of my list was maybe think about selling Deebo Samuel right now and seeing just how much you can get. And I made my point.
Well, there you go. To that point, to that argument, and to this notion that we're going to piss people off, I might piss you off with this next one. You want to talk about peak value? I mean, all the points that you just made, I can't disagree with about trying to find peak, maximizing the value of a player at the right time. Yeah, man, your boy, Gabe Davis, let me be very clear.
I understand this though.
Let me be very clear.
From the peak value standpoint.
Gabe Davis is not a must sell. He's 22 years old, attached to the best dynasty quarterback in the league. He's not a must sell. But the last time we saw this dude, he scored 4 touchdowns in a game. I don't have the numbers off the,
in the spotlight. It wasn't even just in a throwaway week 18 game. It was in the spotlight with everything on the line.
It was a divisional round against the defending AFC champs in their house, and he single-handedly almost won that game for Buffalo.
Yeah, without him, we're not even close to the 13
Not even
seconds
close.
Point. Yeah.
Got wide open multiple times for multiple scores. Big scores down the field. A 200-yard 4-touchdown effort. He broke literally every DFS slate that weekend. You can get a first-round pick for him right now in Dynasty. So
we saw trades right after that that game where he was going for like 107. I heard from somebody.
Yeah. Let me be very clear.
Somebody.
If I owned Gabe Davis and somebody came to me and said, I'll give you 2 second-round picks, I'm telling you to buzz off. Like, get out of here. So we're not selling just to sell. But so far for his career, Gabe Davis has been a strong upside wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 weeks and the occasional wide receiver 1 week. He's never going to be, though, Buffalo's wide receiver 1 as long as Stephon Diggs is there, which is going to be for a good amount of time.
Yeah. He's not going anywhere.
When you can get, and again, I can't stress this enough, you should not settle for anything less than a first-round pick. But if you can get a first-round pick for an upside wide receiver 3 with a strong wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside, if you can get a first-round pick for that, you kind of have to just do it. Like, you kind of just have to, as far as I'm concerned. You want to talk about maximizing the value of a player.
Yeah,
I understand getting attached to certain players. Yeah, well, I thought you might be.
No, because then I would say, hey, do that and then turn around and go get Isaiah McKenzie. And to that point, Mike Diggs says, I was able to sell Chubb mid-season for what ended up being the 102 and the 109. Happy with that return. Chubb is one of my favorite running backs, too. I feel like his value has peaked. And I feel like that's
you don't always like there are certain guys in Dynasty where it's like, I don't feel good about trading them, but again, these are the types of like when we talk about the NFL, like it's a business, like fans get upset when they see a player leave. You gotta run
your dynasty team like that.
You gotta run your dynasty team like you're a robot and you're an emotionless AI and you're just doing the things that you think make the most sense to make to set yourself up.
Bill Belichick for years was lauded for being 1 year too early on a guy rather than 1 year too late.
Yep.
And sometimes, I think all the time, you got to run your dynasty team like that.
Yep.
Maybe not all the time. If you're
not all the time,
peak contender right now, if you just came off of the ship and you got one of the best teams in the league and all your wide receivers are 28, not trying to sell just to get out from a 28, soon to be 29-year-old wide receiver. If you're well within your window and you have a chance to win next year. But should always be at least throwing it out there, seeing what you can get.
Test those waters and see what bites.
While I am very high on Gabe Davis, my boy.
Bay Davis.
there you go. Sometimes you just got to see what you can get for a guy. And if you can get a first-round pick, if you can turn Gabe Davis into Drake London, if you can turn Gabe Davis into Jameson Williams.
Garrett Wilson.
All day. Yeah.
Do it. Do it.
Yeah, especially in a superflex. If you're getting a first-round pick in a superflex league where some of those quarterbacks are going to push some of those other positions.
Makes even more sense.
Yes, makes even more sense. So, yeah, I don't disagree with you, bro. I do not disagree with you. Gabe Davis is a sell.
If you can get if it's like, I'll give you a second-round pick, then it's like, I'm just going to keep him. But if you can get a first, which is more than fair to ask for right now, you got to take a long, hard look at that.
Now, I got another Bills player on my list.
Uh-oh.
Switching positions.
Sure.
Devin Singletary, 25 years old.
Okay.
He is a sell.
All right. I think I can see it, but go. You have the floor.
They have negative $5 million in cap space, but they do have 53 players signed for 2022 as it stands right now, which is not a thing that a lot of the teams can say right now. They
might be able to do some restructures.
Players signed, and they got to
restructures
the Bills
to get
might
under
be able
the cap.
to restructure, probably get rid of Cole Beasley and save $8 million on the cap right there, and then they're $3 million under, right? Things like that, things that we've speculated on before. But Zach Moss, I know Zach Moss is everybody's least favorite running back in the NFL right now outside of Ronald Jones.
Ronald Jones and Trey Sermon.
But Zach Moss is still there.
Yeah.
And the Bills don't have a lot of weaknesses. One is the run game.
Running back is one of them for sure.
And they only have 3 running backs currently signed in 2022. Those 2, Singletary and Moss, and somebody named Christian Wade, who was one of those international players. He was a rugby player from England who came over. He's a preseason.
Didn't he have like a special teams touchdown or something?
In the preseason, like every time he touched the ball, it was a touchdown.
Yeah.
He touched it one time in preseason, like 2 years ago, touchdown. One time last preseason, touchdown.
Yeah.
So he's got some hype
We need to get him into the offense. Dang.
I don't know, maybe. But my point being,
I'm gonna go pick
an
him up
NFL
right
team doesn't like the Bills, who have just came out today and said they're making it a priority to protect Josh Allen in the offseason, whether that's through the draft or free agency. And one of the ways you protect your quarterback outside of just getting a better O-line is to get better rushers, especially when your running back is a rushing quarterback, just to keep him fresh for the postseason, so that he can start running like Josh Allen was in the postseason. They tried the Breida experiment halfway through the season.
Yeah, worked for like 2 games.
Devin Singletary really didn't come on until the end of the year, and it was really just because there was nobody else there that they trusted. So they gave it to him, and he had some boom weeks. But he's 25 years old, and the team will be drafting a running back. They will, because again, this team is not going into 2022 with Singletary, Moss, and then some guy that's never played outside of the preseason, and no one else. This team typically carries 4-5 running backs.
I mean, Singletary's numbers
he's not bad.
Are pretty consistent for his career. Yeah.
He'll probably at worst be the 1B.
Like, it's not inspiring, but it's not awful.
But again, peak value. If you're getting peak value for Singletary, it's coming off of a 6-game stretch where he basically performed. Let me look this up.
He had a career high in touchdowns.
Right.
By far.
I want to see weeks 14 through 18 where he ranked before I say anything with definitiveness.
Basically, recent history suggests
RB2. He was the RB2 overall from weeks 14 to 16, and that's not counting what he did in the playoffs. He was the RB2 behind Rashad Penny. And people are talking, I mean, we've seen some trades out there for Rashad Penny where people were willing to give up a significant amount of draft capital. And Rashad Penny's situation is up in the air. We know Devin Singletary is going to continue playing with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And the situation ain't going to change that much. Outside of, they're going to draft another running back. And they're going to want to see what they have in him. Which was the reason why we were getting away from Singletary when they drafted Moss in the first place. So right now, if you're trying to get peak value and you have Singletary on your team, I'd be selling and telling people, bro, once he got the role, he was the RB2 in fantasy.
Right. Look at that offense he's attached to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe
it's not a hard sell.
And running backs, everybody needs a running back.
Everyone, there's not a single team out there that doesn't need a running back.
Right. So it's not that I think Devin Singletary is going to fall completely off and never be used again and become Zach Moss. But his value is never going to be higher than it is right now. Not even that his value is astronomical, but it's never going to be this high again.
Nah.
So you should be selling Devin Singletary.
Yeah, that one makes sense. The Buffalo backfield is one that has a lot of question marks hanging over it going into this offseason. And I would think there might be, obviously you want to keep putting the ball in Josh Allen's hands as many opportunities as you can, but there's got to be at least a little bit of a philosophical shift there. One, the offensive coordinator moves on, so somebody else is going to come in. They're probably not going to change up the playbook too much, but you want to you want to have somebody a little bit more reliable back there, at least a little bit more. So it makes sense. They might not spend huge capital on a running back, but on a team that, they're just they're plugging a hole here, they're plugging a hole there. They expect to
don't have a lot of weaknesses outside of
deep in the playoffs,
secondary cornerback, because Levi Wallace said he's not going to take a home
discount. Yes. And Tre'Davious White's recovering from
and then O-line. Those are the main things they need to go. So they could draft another running back in the 3rd round for like 3 out of the 4 years they've done that. They could draft another running back in the 3rd round.
And that's fine.
And
you
muddy
could do
the
that.
waters.
That's fine. You could do that. The third round, you're not plunging ridiculous capital into the position.
That's what Moss was. That's what Singletary was.
Yeah, so you take another shot and see what else, becomes available there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, you want to talk about maximizing value. Singletary could, he'll have his stretches, but to be the RB2 for a 4-game stretch at the most crucial juncture of the season, that might not happen again. So, yeah, I don't hate the call.
And I like that return, Mike Diggs. If you're still in here, I like that return. All right. But who's your
absolutely.
Next one?
I mean, for the 102, I don't care what format that is. You can get. You can get
Spiller, and then with the 109, you can pick up Jameson Williams or somebody to that effect.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a super flex league, you might get Wilson.
Something like that.
Yeah. So, I'm not mad about it.
Yeah.
People are going to be mad about this one, though.
Hit me.
So again, the mantra here, the theme here is maximizing value, getting peak value. If you are of the belief, of the mindset that, the player in question isn't likely to reach the marks that they set, which puts them in this conversation to be trade bait in the first place. Then these can be tough pills to swallow. And because it's especially exciting, especially so with young players, good young players. I think we got to take a good, long, hard look about whether it makes sense not to dangle the sun god in a trade, in a potential trade. Amon-Ra St. Brown makes a lot of sense to dangle out there right now. If you play sleeper, it's so easy to utilize the trade block. You could just throw him on there and let the league know, like, hey, this guy is in a vacuum available.
Yeah.
If I had Amon-Ra, that's absolutely he would be on the block. He would be on the block right now. I'm not necessarily, again, this is a lot like Gabe Davis. I'm not going to sell just for the sake of selling, because that's where you get yourself in trouble. But you should be able to get probably
get Elijah Moore plus, and I would take that
for a player who was drafted in the 4th round, right? Soaked up a ton of volume, pretty much all the volume.
No Swift, no Hawk.
In the second half of the season, no DeAndre Swift, no TJ Hawkinson, no other wide receivers of note at all in that wide receiver room for Detroit. And he accumulated basically like a season's worth of production in 8 games. He was phenomenal. He was absolutely phenomenal. We can't expect that again. I'm sorry. We can't expect those numbers to be replicated again. He caught 90 balls in essentially 8 games. Like, he had a fantastic second half of the season. And for a rookie, he absolutely crushed it. Playing with, I don't want to knock Jared Goff too much, because he's proved to be a serviceable quarterback in terms of producing, supporting multiple fantasy relevant players in an offense. But 3 or 4 of those games was Tim Boyle. Like, I don't want to take anything away from Amon-Ra. He was fantastic given the awful situation that he was in, because that offense was anemic and putrid. But yeah, like you just mentioned, DeAndre Swift is going to come back healthy. Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams was also not available for a good stretch of those games. He's a solid pass catcher.
Quintez Cephas, your boy, he was out.
My boy Quintez Cephas. 3 catches, 12 yards, and a touchdown week 1. Nobody forgets that. People don't forget. 12 yards.
Did, but
12 yards. No, touchdown. But yeah, I mean, the most important piece of the passing attack outside of DeAndre Swift, TJ Hawkinson, missed essentially the last 6 games of the year, maybe more. And you have to imagine Detroit's going to add, I don't care if it's free agency or the draft, they're going to add to their receiving room this year.
Absolutely.
Because there's nowhere to go but up for that team.
Mm-hmm.
No disrespect to Khalif Raymond, but by the end of the season, Khalif Raymond was a starter for that team. Khalif Raymond is an NFL player, deserves to be on NFL rosters, but probably as a special teamer, not as a starting wide receiver.
To that point, I mean, the Tennessee Titans, one of the most wide receiver needy teams in the NFL throughout the season,
forgot about Josh
cut
Reynolds.
Josh Reynolds, and then the Detroit Lions picked him back up and tried to force him into a basically full-time role and that didn't even work out.
No.
So yeah,
it didn't.
Sell Amon-Ra right now.
It hurts to do, but for a guy that you probably drafted in the second, maybe the second round of rookie drafts, he probably didn't fall past like the top of the third round. I have to imagine that's he didn't fall too far, but you should be able to get significantly better value than that for Amon-Ra St. Brown right now. It might not feel good to give up a young player, and if you're a rebuilding team, maybe you want to hang on, but you could probably get a nice little haul that you're feeling real good about for the Sun God right now.
Yeah, again, I mentioned it. If you can get Elijah Moore plus a pick.
Elijah Moore and a good pick for Amon-Ra, lock it in.
Yeah, something like that I think I would do.
Lock it in.
It's not that I'm not high on Amon-Ra. It's not that I don't like
Amon-Ra.
Yeah,
there's a trend
money.
here.
I mean, if you picked up a guy relatively late, and he turns into one of the best wide receivers over an 8-game stretch, sometimes you just got to cash in.
Flip him for a bona fide like wide receiver one, or a surefire thing, a guy who has done it year in and year out, where it's like you hang your hat on this guy,
or a bunch of draft capital. Yeah, maybe just cash out and get like 3 high-ish picks.
Turn that lottery ticket into more lottery tickets.
Right, that have a higher chance of hitting.
That have good chances of hitting. Yes, of course.
Right.
Yeah, this is the trend of this episode. The trend of this conversation is that we're talking about guys where it's almost uncomfortable to talk about them, because it's like, at first, your first instant reaction is like, well, I don't want to trade that guy. But this is why we have these conversations. Again, it's easy we could easily sit here and stand on our soapbox and say, trade Derrick Henry. Duh.
Trade Cordell Patterson.
Right. Trade Cordell Patterson.
Years old. Duh.
Yeah.
Right.
See what you can get for, some old name an
Adam
older
Thielen.
player. Yeah, exactly. See what you can get for Adam Thielen. See what you can get for Travis Kelce. Right. Like, this is easy. We're going a little bit of a different angle here and looking at guys who you may not necessarily think to trade, and it might not be comfortable to trade. You might be thinking to yourself, I just don't want to. But that's why we have these conversations.
Speaking of Travis Kelce and just tight ends in general, I got a tight end next.
Tight end to sell?
I got a tight end to sell, and it's not going to feel good for a lot of people.
Let's do it.
But it's situational.
Okay.
A couple of these next guys that I'm going to bring in, situational. I'm not selling them for most tight ends, but considering where they are, it's kind of like that Debo discussion. Where are they going to finish quite this high again? Mark Andrews, 26 years old, soon to be 27 years old. Mark Andrews.
I wasn't expecting. Okay, there were some names I was not expecting to hear. He was probably one of them.
Yeah, I know, bro. I told you I was going to piss some people off. I told you I was going to surprise some people.
You're going to piss yourself off.
Yeah, I know, but hey, hear me out. Again, situation.
Right.
And the situation here is, some people who are new to Dynasty confuse redraft with Dynasty.
Sure.
We've been in Dynasty leagues where I made some trades with the dude who shall not be named early on, who clearly was looking at redraft rankings and trade calculators and not Dynasty rankings and Dynasty trade calculators. If you can find somebody who values Andrews as the tight end 1 in Dynasty.
And some people will.
And that person also has Kyle Pitts. Again, this is situational. I'm getting out from under Mark Andrews to try and get up Kyle Pitts. He's 5 years younger.
5 years younger.
And he just went over 1,000 yards in his rookie season. And people are down on him because he only scored one touchdown.
Right. They're not looking at the full picture.
Again, I'm not saying sell Andrews for anybody.
Right.
In this very specific situation, if you have Andrews, I know I can't do it in a league that I'm competitive in because the person that has Pitts, I'm talking to. So I'm not.
No,
it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Nick's too smart. Yeah.
I'm gonna hang on to my guy.
But if I can trade Mark Andrews, who has hit peak value, and it's not to say he's not going to be a top 3 tight end as we move into 2022 and beyond. But if I can move out from him and get a 21-year-old Kyle Pitts, who just outside of touchdowns almost tied Mike Ditka's record for tight end production in the NFL as a rookie on a team where the quarterback wasn't that good, I would do that. Again, we're talking dynasty. If you can save yourself 5 years at tight end 1 and buy low on a tight end who only finished with 1 touchdown.
Sure.
I would do that. Again, Mark Andrews, he's really good. And he proved that he's quarterback proof, which is something
that's
honestly
big.
very few tight ends can say that they're quarterback proof. We can point to that. That happened this year. Mark Andrews was quarterback proof.
Yeah, that was confirmed this year.
So he's right now, he's my dynasty tight end 2. So again, I'm not selling him for anybody. Even if somebody offered me Kittle in a first, I would have to think real hard at it. But if I could get Pitts, again, very situational. If I can trade out from Mark Andrews and get Kyle Pitts, maybe Kyle Pitts, and if you can get lucky, I would do that.
If that trade was possible, and I'm the person that has Andrews, yeah, I'm gonna look real hard and long at that, and really consider that. But unless that's the trade,
that's what I said. Unless that's the
I don't think I'm gonna sell. I think this is a very specific situation.
Yes, but I think it's a situation that any Andrews owner in Dynasty should seek out.
Should look
any
into.
Andrews owner in Dynasty
I'll give you
should
Andrews
hit
for
up
Pitts
the Pitts
plus.
owner. Just to see
what's out there.
Just to see.
Yeah.
I'm not mad that I'm going to be holding on to Andrews if it doesn't work out. But again,
right.
If I can buy Pitts, think about last season. There was no way that you were buying the pick to get that got Pitts for Andrews last year. Wasn't happening. Despite Andrews finishing relatively high in the tight end rankings last season. And being a relatively high dynasty tight end. There was no way that you were trading Mark Andrews for the pick that got you Pitts or Pitts himself after he was drafted. No way.
I would say, if you can get Pitts in this situation, then sure. But I would say so far, this is the name that has come up that I would be the most resistant to moving.
Yes. Again, situational. And I want to leave it at that. Let's move on. We've nailed this one in. We've whatever. You get my point.
Nailed it down.
Hit your, what's your next one, bro?
I only have like 1 or 2 more here. Actually, we got a couple questions, or we got a question from Iron coming in. So I want to get to that really quick.
Yes.
Are we fine with Goddard for next season? First of all, the Stafford no look pass I've watched a million times.
It was impressive.
It's fantastic. Are we fine with Goddard for next season? I am. Despite the question mark that I kind of posed about Jalen Hurts, I'm more than fine with Goddard. I actually think Goddard is a perfect buy low. Maybe not low, but I think Goddard is a great buy. I think Goddard is a fantastic buy. Ertz is out of the picture. I know, and we saw
waiting
Goddard
until after the draft, but yes.
Yeah. We saw Goddard emerge without Ertz. He's an elite athlete, high draft capital. He's a second-round pick by the Eagles. They traded up to get him. And as of right now, obviously things can change in free agency and the draft, but there's not too much in the pass-catching department for the Eagles outside of Goddard and Devontae Smith. And if they do find a way to upgrade at quarterback in the form of a veteran name, Goddard's value skyrockets. I think he's primed for a strong season next year. I was completely off of him last year. That will not be the case for me in 2022. In 2021, I could probably count the number of shares I had of Goddard on one hand, and that includes dozens of best balls. I avoided Goddard because I didn't like that mid-round value. This now we're talking a little bit redraft here, but I didn't like the mid-round value that Goddard posed. I wanted to either go all in with Kelsey or punt the position and wait until the end of the draft. This year, if I miss out on Kelsey and I miss out on Andrews and I miss out on Kittle and Pitts, I'll look at Goddard probably like 7th, 8th round. If his ADP doesn't move too far from where it was last year to this year, I'll plant my flag right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Goddard was one of my more higher owned players at the tight end position. I think he grades out well from an athletic perspective. He's a good pass catcher. He's a touchdown scorer. He's going to be a focal point of the Eagles' passing attack. Things are looking up for Dallas Goddard.
I said that I would buy
Still pretty young.
Goddard if I don't have Goddard and I'm looking at Goddard after the draft, because the Eagles should be picking up another pass catcher in the draft, at least, and relatively high in the draft, I believe.
They could. They've got 3 first-round picks.
They just picked up Treylon Burks, who's going to take away targets from Dallas Goddard. Let me get Dallas Goddard.
Push
on
that
the
value down a little bit.
So that's what I would be looking for. But I am high on Dallas Goddard, where I wasn't in recent years. I am much higher on Dallas Goddard now. Firmly in that tight end prime window right now. And for better or for worse, he's paired with the quarterback that doesn't have the strongest arm and is going to continue to target him heavily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even if they do pick up a wide receiver that should take away targets from him. So, yeah. Dallas Goddard is a good bet at tight end next year.
To pivot back to I've got 2 more guys. 2 more guys where I'm like, let's sell high, maximize the value. And I'll stick with tight end. I wish I didn't have to do this because I rolled the dice on this guy a couple of times on Best Ball, and I got some tournament teams advanced through to week 16 was the semifinals with this man as a punt at tight end. But I think we might be looking at some real regression. Obviously, landing spot's going to be a big deal here. But Dalton Schultz, I'm just not sure. You want to talk about like Deebo Samuel finishing as the wide receiver 2. Dalton Schultz finished as the tight end 3 this year. On the back of, we catch 8 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns.
A lot of touchdowns, a lot of usage, and he stayed healthy all year. And Blake Jarwin was out for a while. And Gallup was out for a while.
Jarwin basically missed another, for all intents and purposes, basically missed another season.
Right. So he benefited a lot there from vacated targets throughout the season.
Vacated targets from Jarwin, and also he stepped up, I would say, in the second half when the Cowboys offense as a whole was playing a little bit more inconsistently. CeeDee Lamb was not having big games each week. Amari Cooper was like in and out, like hot and cold. The offensive line was like not as good as it's been for Dallas in years past. Dak got the ball out real fast to the easy dump off, which was Dalton Schultz. And he had a great year, not taking that away from him. But he came out of relative obscurity to do it. He was in Best Ball in Underdog Fantasy last year. It was easy to get him in the 18th round last year. 18th round out of 18. So literally your last pick.
Yeah, he was free. So everybody was anticipating it was going to swing back to Blake Jarwin.
Yeah, relative obscurity. I think he's a better player than, say, like Robert Tonyan. But this is the kind of concern that, like, Robert Tonyan was a complete fade this year. And, you want to talk about the season he had in 2020. He did nothing in 2021. Does Dalton Schultz fall off that hard? For his sake, I hope not.
Tonyan was a benefit of a lot of touchdowns.
Huge touchdown numbers in 2020.
So you can make the comparison.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And if you play in a tight end premium league, even if you don't, but honestly, this boosts it a little bit more. Schultz is a sell for me. You're not going to get some crazy, you're not going to get an amazing offer, but if I can flip like a decent, like a good second round pick, say like a top 15 pick for Dalton Schultz, I'm doing that.
I mean, there's a chance he's a free agent.
Right. I don't know where he's going to land.
He goes to a team like the Bengals who have $57 million in cap space. And at that point, you're kind of like kicking yourself because
sure, it's like, okay, that's
sold
a good
when
spot.
his outcome was uncertain, and now he has a little bit more of a certain role. But I think one of the best landing spots for him is to go back to Dallas. And I don't know if that's going to happen.
That would be good, but yeah.
A lot of these other places, like if you went to the Dolphins, who maybe don't have Gesicki, a lot of these other places, I don't know if I love it. So, yeah, I agree. Dalton Schultz. At least
I'll roll the dice on the uncertainty. Yeah.
See what you can get. I'm all about it.
Try to get a draft pick, like a good draft pick. If someone says I'll give you 2/3, it's like, man, no. But if someone says I'll give you a second round pick, and that second round pick is like in the top half of the second round, yeah, sure.
There you go.
Got no problem with that.
So. No, I regretfully don't have any other tight ends on this list.
It's not necessarily regretful. We could always come back and put individual videos together if anybody is interested in a specific name at all.
Still
on top
hit Ty Chandler.
Yeah, we still gotta hit that guy.
Yeah. Week.
In addition to our rookie profiles, which will continue this week, absolutely not a problem to just profile any one specific player for dynasty purposes if anybody has any interest in that. So.
Absolutely, and we are gonna. I believe I'm gonna start making some specific videos like that where 3 to 5 minutes, and basically we say a lot of the. We just add people to this list, but in a video outside of the stream. So stay tuned for those. But let's get back into it. I'm gonna list off 2 right now. It's a double header.
Okay, do that because I only got one guy left. So if you want to,
we saw a trade in a league that we were in. I was just like, wow, dude, really? Chuba Hubbard. He's 22 years old. And he had a yards per carry average with the backfield pretty much all to himself of 3.61 last year. He was one of the least efficient running backs in the NFL.
Yeah,
and he's a second-year running back. Now, McCaffrey's coming back. We don't know what kind of role he's going to step into, but McCaffrey is coming back. We don't know if McCaffrey can stay healthy. But we've seen Chuba with a relatively heavy workload do pretty much nothing. And I know that was with a lot of meh quarterbacks.
I gotta go back
at
and take
best.
a look.
But Chuba, 3.61 yards per carry average says all I need to say. I can't remember seeing a yards per carry average that low. I can't. And in the league that I was in, I wouldn't sell him for this. Somebody sold him for the 411 and 412. Wouldn't sell him for that. But if I have Chuba, considering he is only 22 years old, very young player, just drafted, maybe somebody out there is just like, let me get this young running back that this player does, this fantasy player doesn't like on my team, if he doesn't like him, and let me see what happens because my running back depth is all old. Something like that. Or maybe you reach out to the McCaffrey owner and see what you can get to give him the McCaffrey handcuff. And just, I would be getting out from Chuba. I think he is
a guy.
Empty fantasy production for you. And even when given a full workload, if McCaffrey gets injured again and it doesn't work out again for like the 3rd season in a row, I don't think you're going to get a lot out of Chuba. So Chuba's number 1.
Yeah, he had one game where he went over 100 yards. It took him 24 carries to do it. He had another game where he had 82 rushing yards. Again, took him 24 carries to do that.
Yeah, the efficiency just isn't there.
Those were his 2 best games as far as running the ball. He had a 16 carry 61 yard game. So again, yeah, you're like that's 4-ish. Actually, it's less so. So, yeah, I mean, the efficiency wasn't there. Not what you want to see, from a young running back. So I'm okay with that.
And my second guy is a wide receiver here before we move on to your last guy. And then I have a few others that we can pick through. But that's Bryan Edwards of the Raiders.
Okay.
Still relatively young, 23 years old right now, soon to be 24. I just don't think it's going to happen. Especially with the quarterback that he's probably going to be playing with for the foreseeable future in Derek Carr. It's not to say I don't think Derek Carr is a good quarterback. I think Derek Carr is a very underrated quarterback. I just don't think he targets that area of the field. And I think with the loss of Henry Ruggs, they're going to go out and try to get another young wide receiver somewhere in this year's draft. Or through free agency, or both. They already have Renfro. They got Waller coming back. And other wide receivers too. Nelson Aguilar outplayed him 2 seasons ago. And then he was the biggest hype show in the offseason, preseason. Derek Carr was saying offhand that he reminded of Devontae Adams, and people got hype, and then he was making catches, and John Gruden was saying he was putting it all together. And then Zay Jones outproduces him throughout the season. I'm all the way off on Bryan Edwards. If you can sell Bryan Edwards off the hype that was generated throughout his first 2 seasons to somebody who still wants to take a stab at him. If you can sell him on, he's still real young, wide receiver. Maybe he can produce on his second contract on another team, and maybe he can. Maybe he can go someplace else once he's 25, 26 years old and do much better and realize his promise because the fit just wasn't there for him. That might be in the cards for Bryan Edwards. And the person that he was compared to, Devontae Adams, kind of not the same trajectory, but took him a while.
Took him a couple years.
So again,
Sell
that narrative and say, he was compared to Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams didn't hit right away. He's only 24. Stick him on the end of your roster and reap the benefits when he's 27. Let me get a late second. Something like that. I bet you can get more than you think from it. One owner in your league who's still on the Bryan Edwards train, who still thinks maybe that can work out. Because I'm all the way out.
If there were one thing that I would point to, it would be that potential for that third-year breakout, just because sometimes it doesn't click for players right away.
Not in today's NFL anymore. I mean, I feel that narrative hasn't
use
really...
cases are few and far between, but
yeah.
We're not so far removed from the beginning of Devontae Adams' career. I know he's approaching 30 now, but we're talking 5 years ago.
He's also paired with a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and was not good his first 2 seasons.
And
so
learned from the combination of Greg Jennings and Jordy Nelson.
Yeah,
so,
he had a good support system. The system was in place for him to.
I don't know if the situation is in place.
It's not the same situation in Vegas. There's no doubt,
especially with that coaching staff turmoil. It's just.
Yeah. Who'd they hire? Did they hire?
Josh McDaniels, bro.
Oh, that's right.
And I got another Raider on my list and that I got to talk about because he's a guy that was on the thumbnail that you just bought.
I did just buy him. Go ahead. I only have one more. Actually, okay. I have another dude that's on the thumbnail too. I think it's the last dude on the thumbnail but go ahead and say your piece about the running back.
Josh Jacobs. He's only 23 years old.
Yeah,
by all accounts, he should be a buy for you. Came into the league super young. Team commits to the run seemingly every year. Seems to be a running back that you can pay RB2 prices for and get high-end RB2 production or low-end RB1 production every year. So why is he on this list? Because Josh McDaniels is his quarterback. And who did Josh McDaniels learn from? RBBC Coach Belichick. Mr. We never know what to do with.
Yeah, we never know what to expect.
Group, right? Are we gonna get Brandon Bolden? Are we gonna get James White? Are we gonna get Damian Harris? Are we going to get J.J. Taylor? Are we going to get Ramondre Stevenson? And I think Josh McDaniels brings that to Vegas, and we finally see some of these secondary running backs get a little bit more play, whereas in years past, there was some speculation that Peyton Barber was going to come in and take some work from Josh Jacobs, and then the next year Kenyon Drake was brought in and was going to take all of Josh Jacobs' receiving work. Didn't come to fruition. This year it might, because he's the Belichick disciple.
Mm-hmm.
He is the Belichick disciple, and Josh Jacobs has been an accumulator. He hasn't been particularly efficient. In fact, he hasn't been efficient. He's been one of the least efficient on a per-touch basis running backs in the NFL for the past few seasons. He's succeeded out of pure workload. And I don't know if he gets that moving forward. I don't know if he gets the pure workload that he was getting through his first 3 seasons. I don't know if he gets that. Still going to get a decent amount of work. But it could look more like Damian Harris's touch stat line. They could draft a guy. They could finally use Kenyon Drake. I think he signed for 1 more year.
Yeah, he signed for 1 more year.
So I'm a little bit worried about Jacobs. If not for the Josh McDaniels signing, I think he'd be somebody that you should buy.
Harris had 202 carries this year. Okay.
But Josh Jacobs at 23 years old at running back is a sell for me. And again, I know, gonna piss some people off. I made my list with the intention of it not being obvious people to be selling in Dynasty.
Yep.
None of the players I've listed are over 26 years old.
So the idea here has been kind of contrarian the entire time, or not contrarian, but you get the idea. We're like think outside
less
the
obvious
box,
players,
almost.
Right?
Yeah, think a little outside the box thinking, and then
getting peak value. I think this is where you get peak value for Josh Jacobs. I don't know if he returns the value that we've gotten over the past few seasons, which is, again, if he didn't finish as an RB1, he finished as a high-end RB2 for the past few seasons. I think it's going to look more like low-end RB2 this year, which isn't not valuable.
The thing with Jacobs...
Hit me.
The thing with Jacobs is, regardless of, like, do we think that more running backs mix in this year? Jacobs has been very, to your point about his lack of efficiency, he's also been very game script dependent.
Yes. When
the Raiders are winning the game, Jacobs is money. Like, if you're a Jacobs owner, you want the Raiders to go 18 or 17-0, because that means that Jacobs finishes as a top 5 running back. When they are trailing, Jacobs becomes, I don't want to say it's kind of close to a non-factor.
He picks up some receiving work, but it's not efficient
he
receiving
might get just 6
either.
or 7 fantasy points. Like, maybe he totals 60 yards, 65 yards. It's not an awful game, but it's not an RB1 game. Like, maybe there's probably doesn't score a touchdown. Maybe gets 40 yards on the ground, catches 2 to 3 balls for another, say, 15 yards, 20 yards, something like that. He can do that. He can give you a boring floor play. But the upside is capped when the Raiders are trailing. So that's definitely has been a fair knock against him. I'm not sure I'm worried about Josh McDaniels. I hear the concern just like coming from the Belichick tree and never really relying on one guy or even like 2 guys over the course of the season. It's more like 5 guys,
3 or 4 at least. Yeah,
5 guys. Love those burgers. Too damn expensive though. But
you get those free peanuts while you're waiting in line.
You get the free peanuts. The fries are cooked in the peanut oil. It's all good. Yeah, it's all good. crap, I'm hungry now.
You can pick up a shake there too if that's your thing. But
yeah, you can. I think they're better at Shake Shack though. Well, anyway, we could talk.
Well, they are named for it, but yeah.
Those shakes, they better be good. With Jacobs, I think McDaniels potentially, I'm not predicting this, but potentially gives a little bit more of a modern look to the offense that maybe a John Gruden did not. Which that might mean more throwing the football.
I would hope so.
That would mean more throwing the football. So does that take an opportunity away here and there away from Josh Jacobs? Yeah, maybe. But 250 carries is 250 carries. And again, the concern about, are we going to play musical chairs at running back with a Belichick disciple as the head coach? Jacobs is still a former first-round pick, so I think that's in his favor. Remember, the Patriots did draft a running back in the first round not too long ago.
Yeah, but the fact that the Raiders, the Raiders' first-round picks are different than everybody else's first-round picks. Sure.
But I wouldn't call Jacobs a bust.
No, he's not a bust. Because he was
a first-round pick. It wasn't a smart pick,
right,
to take a running back in the first round, but he's still a first-round pick for whatever that's worth. And the Patriots did draft a running back in the first round, Sony Michel, and I think we can all agree in a vacuum, Josh Jacobs is better than Sony Michel.
He was drafted a lot higher too. So
was it? I thought he was in the 20s. It was the 20s. Yeah, it was like in the 20s. Was where he was drafted, and Sony Michel was drafted like 31st or something like that because the
Never
Patriots.
Mind. I was wrong.
Yeah, I think 24th. That wasn't it. Jacobs was drafted 24th.
I don't know. I'm looking.
Okay, well. I think it's 24th
Continue
or 20th.
Your point. I'll tell you.
Sony Michel, his rookie year, he missed week 1 of the season because he picked up a knee injury in training camp. Went on to touch the ball over 200 yards or 200 times that year.
You're right. Yes.
As a rookie, he picked it up so I think we can still lean on the volume. If you're acquiring Jacobs, you're acquiring him knowing that there's going to be games where, you're only going to get 5 points out of him, 6 points out of him. So that's not very consistent. And if he's your RB1, that's not so good. The argument is there. Again, I'm not like, it's not like, I disagree. I don't know. I think he will be fine despite the regime change. But it's almost like, I don't want to compare it to Saquon, but it's almost like, with a guy like Jacobs, the consistency is not there to the point where you're like, I just want a little bit more. Like, I like a little bit more. So I can understand like maybe wanting to get out from under that.
And again, he's young. And there aren't any running backs of real note behind him. But if McDaniels is going to carry some of that Belichick thought process in terms of the running backs over, you do have a pass catcher in Kenyon Drake. And I know I compared him to Damian Harris. Damian Harris this year benefited from no James White. James White getting hurt and injured. So looking at Damian Harris's touch counts might not be predictive in this area. You might need to look at stats over his career or averages over his career versus what happened last year. But I think I made my point on Jacobs. He's at least somebody that you might want to be thinking about putting on that trade block. See what you can get for him.
Yeah. I mean, a running back is a running back. No matter who they are, somebody's bound to have some level of interest. Yeah. So.
All right. So who's your last guy? I got 2 more here. One of them is one of these very situational. Okay. This is you only move this guy if you hit this situation type deals, and the other one is a quarterback. But who's
so
your
I
guy?
I might be stealing your other one because he's on the thumb, and I had him in the back of my head coming into this segment anyway. But it is our most recent Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Yeah.
That would be Matty Stass. So, he is older than 26. He's 34. Different, when looking at age, completely different
Still
when
has
considering quarterbacks.
probably a solid 4 to 6 years in the league.
6 years in the league. I would say 3 to 4 years at a pretty good level of play.
But he's only signed with the Rams through next year.
Through next season, which I would be willing to bet that that doesn't change. Like they'll keep him.
But at that point, what's the rest of their team going to be looking like if they have to give him a deal that is worthy of a guy that's brought them and won them a Super Bowl and probably brought them close to another one, considering the state of the NFC right now?
Oh, the Rams are the clear favorites. Like, not just because they won.
They've given up all their first-round picks. They have a bunch of guys with big contracts that are probably not going to be on the team in 2 years, or at least might be pricing themselves out. They might be guys that you cut and incur a little bit of dead cap. So how good is their team going to be? Is he going to have the same stars? Cooper Kupp's going to be 32 at that time, 31 going on 32 at that time. So, you got to take. There's a lot of
different variables. I mean, so to this almost kind of further strengthens the point to dangle Stafford, test the waters, and see
QB4 last year.
Yeah, I mean, again, the theme here, the mantra, the common trend here is peak value, maximum value, and you're not going to be able to really find anybody right now who can poo-poo Matthew Stafford and back it up with anything legitimate.
No.
The man just won the Super Bowl, had like a resurrection of sorts for his career. Not that he was a bad quarterback by any means ever, but he
was
played
a high-end QB2 and he turned into a high-end QB1, and he kind of falls into that found money bucket where it's like, oh snap, I stumbled upon a high-end QB1.
Yeah,
let me
you
see
found
if I can
$20
move
lying
and
on
see
the
what
street.
I can get. Right.
Yeah, you found $20 lying on the street. Now you can go cash that in for something essentially for free.
Yeah.
Is the way that I look at that in that situation. So yeah, Stafford is a guy who, especially so in superflex leagues, is not a must sell. But if you can get a young quarterback, if you can get a draft pick, and maybe throw in, another prospect in there, because again, when you are talking about peak value, when you're talking about maximizing value, you should be able to squeeze that little extra asset out of the person you're negotiating with. Might not be a bank-breaking asset,
to make it truly worthwhile.
Sweeten that pot to make it be like, okay, I actually want to do this.
Right.
You can do that with Stafford right now because it's nothing but roses for him because he just won the Super Bowl and threw 3 touchdowns doing it. It's not like the run game didn't carried him. He had a good game.
And the run game didn't look good, so they're not going to be running all over the place.
Anything.
Right.
The running game did nothing.
The narrative
I'm a little worried about.
And OBJ broke his ankle. Now he's probably going to be back with the Rams on a minimum vet deal. You can squeeze that in that too to the negotiations. Not broken ankle. You know what I mean?
Tore his ACL.
Right. But you can squeeze that into the negotiations and say, hey, he's probably going to have OBJ back.
He's going to get Odell. By mid-season next year, he's going to have Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Odell Beckham to throw to. Not to mention really good pass catchers out of the backfield in Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson. A viable weapon at tight end, viable in Tyler Higbee, and a great upside guy in Van Jefferson. This is the sell where it's like, look at the loaded offense that Matthew Stafford's most likely going to have by week 7 or 8 next year. You're going to be, he'll take off for you.
Try to sell him for a guy that we brought up last week in Russell Wilson, who in almost every single year in the league, if not every year in the league that they've been in the league together, Russell Wilson's been the far better fantasy quarterback.
Not even close.
And now the tables have turned in this one season. And you should be seeing if you can move. They're basically the same age, if not truly the same age. See if you can move Matt Stafford into Russell Wilson.
Yep. I love that move, actually. That's a great idea. That's a real. Right? I didn't even think I was. Yeah, that's a great idea because Russ's value is down right now.
And last year, last year Matt Stafford was QB 15. The year before that, I don't know if he was in the top 20. I think the couple of years where he was a high-end quarterback were in his first few seasons when he was throwing to Megatron. Outside of that, he was either the lowest of low-end QB1s or the highest of high-end QB2s. And Russell Wilson was a high-end QB1 for the majority of his career, and their situation seemed to have flipped for one season. And if you can trade your way back into that to a Russell Wilson plus.
I'm all on board. All on board with that plan.
Yeah. In any format.
All on board with that
or
plan.
Superflex.
Yep. You get a year younger, you get a year younger, you get a bona fide player who has been, like you said, better for fantasy, and you can pick up more assets.
Right.
Matthew Stafford should absolutely be on the trading block if you have him, because again, we're just trying to maximize value today. That's all I have. Those are the guys that I have, John. So if you want to bring us home with one or two more names.
Well, Matt Stafford was the other guy I had on my list,
okay.
So you knocked one of those off. So I have one more, and this is the most situational one. And this is kind of, we were joking around before the stream, and we were like, we were talking about how we didn't want to go for the low-hanging fruit.
Sure.
And I said, I'm going to try to make a point about Jamar Chase and why you should be. So yeah, this one I gotta shake my head on. This one is a little bit of a joke, a little bit of a challenge from Nick to make me.
This is it. All right.
Can dig deep here. All right,
but okay.
All right. If you have Jamar Chase and you're in a standard scoring dynasty league.
One quarterback or two?
I didn't go that deep.
Okay.
But if you're in a standard league.
Okay.
Just ask the Higgins owner what he's going to add. Just ask the Higgins owner what he's going to add.
Okay.
To Jamar Chase.
Now I'm kind of listening.
Or to the package to see what you can get for Jamar Chase. Hear me out. Jamar Chase was the wide receiver 5. Higgins was the wide receiver 15.
Higgins is 23.
8 to 16, Higgins averaged more points per game than Chase did, even though Chase was the de facto wide receiver 1 on the team. It was 17.4 to 17.1 for Chase.
Pennies, we're talking.
Right. Higgins scored, and I did steal this stat.
Sure.
Because I was trying to make this point make sense, because it really doesn't. Higgins scored at least 14 fantasy points in 42.3% of games this year. By comparison, Chase scored 14 or more fantasy points in 41.2% of games this year.
So slightly more efficient from T.
Right. You were getting a higher floor from Higgins. The ceiling was higher for Chase. There's 2-year difference between the two. Chase is 21 years old. Higgins is 23. So if you're moving off of Chase to get a Higgins, you're still getting a very young fantasy asset who's tied to Joe Burrow for at least the next 2 seasons until his rookie deal is up. Chase is tied to him for 3. But considering Chase is the, by and large, if it's not Justin Jefferson, it's Chase, the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty right now. If you can move off of Chase and get Higgins and like 2 first-round picks because it's Jamar Chase.
He's the Dynasty wide receiver 1 right now.
Right. Would you do that? Considering what I just laid out here. Considering that Tyler Boyd is going to cost the team $10 million for the next 2 seasons and can be cut and only incur $2 million in dead cap, which means he saves the team $8 million in cap space. Not that they need it. They have $57 million in cap space.
This year?
Yes.
They could, the Boyd cut could, okay.
It could occur this year. They could save $8 million on the cap by cutting Boyd this year. And let me just point out.
I hope that doesn't happen for Boyd's sake, but okay.
I hope not either. But this is one of the stingiest teams in the NFL when it comes to money.
They are notorious
Carson
under
Palmer
Palmer,
come out and speak openly about the fact that he wasn't sure if Burrow was going to make it to a second contract with this team because this team's so stingy with money. If you've been listening to the Pat McAfee show, Pat McAfee, every single time he brings up the Cincinnati Bengals, he talks about how they don't have a practice, they don't have an indoor practice facility. They're still the only team in the NFL with an outdoor practice facility because their owner's too stingy. And
that's why they were practicing at the University of Cincinnati leading up to the Super Bowl.
I just heard this just 2 days ago on Buffalo Sports Radio. How big would you guess is the scouting staff for a modern NFL team that just made the Super Bowl? How big is that personnel group?
I mean, I would have. I'd have 20 scouts from. I don't. Maybe that's a low number. I don't even know.
You know how many scouts are on the Bengals payroll?
4, 5,
6.
I was close.
They got 6.
What's the next lowest? Do you know?
I don't know, dude. I didn't get that far in the stat. That's just crazy.
The point is
an NFL team that is raking in money, and where the point is to win, the Bengals are so stingy that they would rather save a little bit on their bottom line than pay scouts to bring in the best talent. And they got to the Super Bowl in spite of that.
Right.
Now that team, a team that goes that far to save money, could think about selling Boyd or cutting Boyd to save $8 million against the cap, even though they have $57 million in cap space.
So all of this to say, I'm almost compelled.
And again, this is only in standard because Chase catches a lot more passes than Higgins. Higgins is more of a big play threat in terms of his play style, not in terms of the production. But in a half PPR or PPR format, I really wouldn't be thinking of this because Jamar Chase caught 128 passes in his rookie season. That number should only grow.
I don't know how much higher
Higgins,
it grows, but
Higgins caught, I believe, just above 100, somewhere in between 100, 110 in both of his 2 seasons in the NFL. So that seems to be his sweet spot.
141 for his career, so about 75.
Okay, there you go. I might have been looking at targets.
But 75, 1,000, almost 1,100
stands.
yards and 6 touchdowns. I mean,
point stands. If you're in a standard league, this is what I'm looking at. See if you can get Higgins and 2 first-round picks for Chase. And again, sell high.
Yeah, it would take those 2 first-round picks.
What were you getting
Higgins
in a trade if you were trading away CeeDee Lamb the year after he was drafted? Because he was
Higgins and 2 first-round picks.
Right.
T. Higgins and 2 first-round picks.
What were you getting if you sold DK Metcalf last year before the season started?
Yeah, same. I mean, I see where you're going with this. I guess my one concern with even your situational.
Again, I'm not really suggesting you do this. This is kind of just an exercise. With
yeah,
me
no,
and Nick right now.
we're spitballing ideas out here. I guess my
and
only.
I want to know. We got 5 people in the chat. Let us know what you think,
like,
and if you have any sells that you were
Yeah.
thinking of. If you're looking at your team and like, hey, should I be selling Mike Evans right now because the situation's weird? I don't know. Anybody like that, throw it in the chat and we can have a little bit of discussion before we end the chat too.
Yeah, he felt like low-hanging fruit too, so I'm happy we didn't talk about Mike Evans. But anyway, with Chase, the point that you're like, it's compelling, but I think because you bring up a good point, like about the Bengals' history of being penny pinchers, that almost makes me more inclined to want to just keep Chase, because if they are gonna spend money, it's gonna be on Burrow and Chase.
Probably.
That would be the only thing. I don't hate this idea, but because but you bring up a good point about the Bengals notoriously being cheap. They are notoriously cheap. If that continues with this current regime and with this team that just won the Super Bowl, and they're still pinching pennies, which we're talking about billionaires at this point. So, This is what they do. They pinch pennies. I would almost feel like it's more likely that, 3-4 years from now, Higgins is the one that walks.
Probably.
Not Chase.
No, I agree. And this, to a certain extent, this whole stream has been a little bit of an exercise.
Yeah, we're having fun with
it. I'm not like dead set on if you have Deebo Samuel,
trade
you should be
Jamar Chase
Deebo
because
Samuel.
we're not pounding the table for that.
Mark Andrews, again, it's very situational. There's one situation in which I would do that. Jamar Chase, there's one very specific situation in one very specific format where I would even entertain this.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, this is an exercise, very situational. It's just to get the conversation going, just to be a little contrarian so we don't end up having the same conversations every day. And just so when you come to our pod, you're getting something a little bit different.
You're getting
to
some
our streams, you're getting something a little bit different.
You're not getting the same talking points that are played out pretty much everywhere else because everybody's talking about trading Devontae Adams, trading Dalvin Cook, trading Derrick Henry.
Those conversations.
Yeah, it's like we know those guys are quote unquote obvious sells. Let's talk about guys that are less obvious sells. So that's what we like to do on top of just having a fun conversation about fantasy in general. Hopefully that's something that is of enough interest to.
Hey, some of these fantasy shows don't have enough fun. And we're
too...
like a lot of this. I mean, we're doing this because we want to get rich and famous. But hey, we also do this because this is fun for us.
It's just fun to do.
And hey, if you can't have fun with fantasy, then you shouldn't be playing.
Then you're not doing it right.
Right. So, take a lot of these sells, at least from me, the ones that I put forth with a grain of salt, take into account the caveats that I put forth before I mentioned a lot of these dudes' names and a lot of the situations in which I would be open to thinking about selling them. I'm not advocating you sell Jamar Chase. I'm just advocating.
But if you get his teammate T. Higgins and 3 first-round picks, then do it.
Yo, Iron, you're staying with Chase until he retires. Hey, I don't hate that. I'm probably in the same boat as you, because if I had Chase on any of my teams, I would find it real hard to get rid of him.
I would not want to trade him. I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm looking at his name and I'm like, I just like that he's on my roster. I think at the end of the day, that's what I'm doing.
we're just trying to have fun with y'all.
It's fun. No, this is what we do.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, last year I had DK Metcalf. There was no way I was contemplating at all trading DK Metcalf to the highest bidder just to see what I could get.
But guess what? He would have made sense if we had done a video like this last year. And guess what? Now hindsight 2020.
And we're not expecting that from Jamar Chase. We're not.
No, this is a different.
But it's an
exercise
in that way of thinking, because honestly, I haven't seen too many other fantasy enterprises really entertain that sort of thing. So again, we want to have fun with y'all, and we thought this was a fun way to approach Dynasty Sells. But yeah, man, there's a special feeling every single time Jamar Chase catches the ball. It's just different.
Yeah,
and he makes it look so effortless. It's just like it feels like it's like, yo, that's something I see every day. But it's also like just because of the ease at which it happens with Joe Burrow and Chase. But we know how special it is.
He was pro ready when he was 19.
We know how special it is. We know how rare it is that we get a talent like that with rapport like that with a quarterback.
At the end of the day, I don't think I could pull the trigger. But yeah, I mean, all you have to do is look back at DK Metcalf this time last year, and
CeeDee Lamb is now getting
CeeDee Lamb is
is he a top 10 dynasty wide receiver?
I've
heard that question put forth.
Yeah,
I still think he is.
Yeah, he hasn't fallen so far, but he's certainly fallen.
Right. So, I mean, it's at least something.
A fall is a fall. So.
And I'm not advocating it, but something you got to at least have in the back of your mind. At least.
Yeah, this is what we like to do. This is what we like to do.
See what's out there. Somebody's willing to give you T. Higgins and all of their firsts just to get Jamar Chase because they're more in love with him than you are.
It's like,
and maybe they have Burrow and they're trying to get that stack for the rest of eternity. And they're willing to mortgage their entire future for the Burrow Chase stack. Sometimes you just got to be water instead of staying static. Sometimes you just got to be a little bit more fluid with your whole situation and be like, yo, I can't look that gift horse in the mouth. So every situation is different.
Still fun to go through them all and
still fun to do this type
have a conversation about it.
But Iron, who else are you in any are you in Dynasty? I forget.
Oh yeah, he is.
Who's on your team that you're like
For
thinking
sure.
might be aging out soon? Is there anybody that you're like, should I put this guy in the block? Anybody that you got question marks about?
Yeah, I mean, there's also, if there's any names that come up, we could also do videos on them too. If anybody was interested in that, always happy to do individual videos on a player.
Absolutely.
At any request. We are coming up on time though. It has been 2 hours, so
yep.
I think we are winding this down. But yeah, I mean, to everybody who stopped by, to everybody who's still hanging out and still watching, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us. Engaging in the chat.
We appreciate you tolerating our crazy takes today.
Yeah,
they won't always be so outlandish, but
might have been a little wild, might have been a little contrarian. But guess what? What's the point of having of playing fantasy if you don't like weigh every single scenario? That's the fun in it, especially Dynasty specifically. That will do it for today, though. We will be back here Thursday, once again, 6 p.m. Eastern, taking the place of Thursday Night Football. What are we doing then? I don't even know. What do we got going on Thursday?
I have no idea. That
might be a little bit TBD. But we will have a topic for y'all. Rest assured, we'll have something for you for Thursday. We'll talk more. We'll talk more football. As we, I guess, are starting to, the next thing that's on the horizon is the combine. So,
I'm
happy
excited
to
for that. I'm so
happy to talk
for
young players. Happy to talk young players, rookies, or continue a conversation of buy sell, whatever works. But we'll hammer out a more definitive answer for you for what we're doing for the show for Thursday.
Yeah, we might put that up in a post tomorrow, so keep an eye out.
Yeah, we can do that.
You'll get the subject matter
interest
for Thursday.
Yeah, there you go.
But hey, welcome again to the football off season where the fun begins if you're a dynasty manager.
Yeah, we're here all season long to hang with you and keep you company while we get through these months of football hibernation.
And like Nick said, thank you again to everybody that tuned in. Thank you again for all your questions. If you got any more, throw them into the comments. But hey, everybody, continue to have a great week. Again, thank you for tuning in. This was a fun one. I legitimately had fun with this stream. So thank you, Nick. Thank you, audience. And we will see you again on Thursday.
Cool. Sounds
have a good one, y'all.
Yep. Have a good night, everybody.